Formula One is a wild sport. When we're watching it, we're at the edge of our seats, biting our nails as supercars navigate effortlessly through hairpin bends at neck-breaking speeds. This isn't a sight for the weak-hearted. With these intense thrills come equally intense celebrations, but sometimes the champagne is popped a bit too soon, and F1 drivers are left red-faced because of their eagerness to claim victory. In this video, we'll talk about how F1 drivers celebrated too early and it backfired. First up, let's talk about the time Nigel Mansell celebrated a bit too early at the Canadian Grand Prix. Mansell looked like a shoo-in for the top prize in the 1991 Canadian Grand Prix. That is until his car stopped half a lap before the finish. It was such a rookie mistake, but he let his engine rev drop a bit too much and his car stalled. This allowed three-time champion Nelson Piquet to zoom past and seize victory. What makes it worse is that Mansell had started a celebratory wave around the same time his car stopped. Talk about embarrassing. Next, we have the time Felipe Massa was world champion for a whole 39 seconds. Just before Lewis Hamilton snatched the title from him. Hamilton's first world championship was a nail-biting event, with the McLaren driver claiming the title in the last few seconds of the last corner of the last lap of the last race of the season. Hamilton had been at the head of the championship table, but Massa was untouchable, preventing Hamilton from moving up from the fourth place. Imagine the scenes. Rain is pouring, the crowds are nervous, the drivers even more so. This is a make-or-break situation. Massa knew that and initially dominated the final race. It looked like a clear victory. He cleared the finish line, breezing past his competitors. He was the first one through, but thanks to Hamilton's skillful driving, he was a close second, crossing the finish line 40 seconds after Massa and securing an extra point that allowed him to snatch the crown of victory back from Ferrari, cutting their celebration short. While it might have been heartbreaking for Massa, we should commend his sportsmanship and dignity because he handled the disappointment like a pro, climbing onto the podium and congratulating the new winner. Up next, we have Alpice's inability to make his mark as an F1 driver. This might sound strange, but Canadian Al Pease came from an incredibly successful background in domestic competition and was made a part of the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame in 1998. With all of these accolades, it would be assumed that he would secure equal, if not greater victory at F1, right? Well, that's unfortunately wrong. His F1 career was far from successful, and Pease is historically the only F1 driver to have been disqualified from a race for driving too slowly. Wow, who would have thought that was even possible? In addition to this, he was also disqualified from the 1969 Canadian Grand Prix for disturbing his fellow competitors and battling against race leaders even though he was several laps behind them. To make matters worse, his actions during the Grand Prix almost took Jackie Stewart out, and Ken Tyrrell, another racer, was forced to lodge a complaint against him that led him to be shown the black flag and be disqualified from the race. Talk about a disappointing finish to what had the makings of a victorious and fruitful career. And now, we turn to Lola's embarrassing debut in the racing circles. Lola is a household name in motorsports, especially since it's a major supplying chassis to teams across a variety of categories. We'd imagine they know how to build a car, right? Well, not quite. There was a lot of anticipation for their car. It was unimaginable that they'd fail so badly. Anyway, with backing from MasterCard, they debuted it in the 1997 season in Australia, but their drivers failed to qualify. On top of that, they had to withdraw from the next race in Brazil because of financial and technical problems. That was the end of their short and embarrassing racing career, one that started with a lot of expectations and hopes for success. Next up is David Coulthard's embarrassing accident during the 1995 Adelaide Grand Prix. This Scottish driver had an egg on his face after suffering through one of the most embarrassing incidents in the history of the Adelaide Grand Prix in 1995. Coulthard was in the running for victory. He was all set to win. He had qualified second place, but a boost at the start of the race allowed him to take the lead. Everything was looking great until his stop at the pit lane on lap 20, which ruined his chances to be the first to race across the checkered flag. As he maneuvered through the hairpin right-hand entry, the car locked up and he smashed into a wall. Talk about a rookie mistake. The leader was no longer in the lead, all because of a small, easily avoidable error. Up next is Lewis Hamilton's poor pit call, one that cost him his lead in the 2015 Monaco Grand Prix. It looked like Lewis Hamilton was set to score an easy win, especially since he had dominated the race overall. But you know what they say, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Hamilton and the company he was driving for, Mercedes, did exactly that and chose to pit him during a late safety car period, with the idea that he'd easily make up any lost time. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case, and in their overconfidence, they overestimated the gap between him and the other drivers, causing him to lose the lead. Though Hamilton came third, it was impossible for him to get back to the head of the pack, proving that defeat is a bitter pill to swallow, especially when you are responsible for it. And now we talk about how Ferrari put all their eggs in one basket in Abu Dhabi, and it didn't work out in their favor. In the 2010 Abu Dhabi final, Ferrari was confident that Webber's Red Bull would win the race. On lap 10, Webber ran ran wide and had to make a pit stop because he was losing grip on his tires. Fearing the worst, Ferrari followed his orders because they wanted him to be in the best shape possible to beat Alonso. Luckily, Alonso pitted as well and rejoined in 12th place, just in front of Webber. It now became a game between the two, who would secure the crown for Ferrari. This was a crucial moment. The other competitors, Vettel and Hamilton, realized they could secure victory if they stayed on track as long as possible and avoided all unnecessary pit stops. Before the race began, Alonso could have finished second, and he would have had the title in the bag. But by the time Vettel and Hamilton put their strategy in place, Ferrari, who had begun the race with the assurance that they would win, was now realizing they had been foolhardy. Alonso realized that he was quickly losing ground and victory was speeding away from him. Up next is the high-profile collision between teammates Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg in the 2016 Austrian Grand Prix. This was meant to be an easy win, one that in racing terms would have secured Mercedes a 2-1 formation victory, cementing their position as victors of the race in the motorsports world. But these dreams turned to dust in a split second when Hamilton tried to overtake Rosberg in the final lap of the 2016 Austrian Grand Prix. Rosberg didn't turn in, a move that he put down to brake issues post-race. This move meant that the two collided, and Mercedes lost out on its guaranteed 1-2 victory and had to settle for the positions of winner and fourth place respectively. Though that isn't an extreme backfire, it just shows us that taking even the smallest of risks in the world of F1 can have major consequences. And finally, we look at the unfortunate engine mishap suffered by Carlos Sainz in 1998. This is probably one of the hardest pills to swallow. Thinking about it now, so many years later, does not make it any easier. Picture the scene. The legendary Carlos Sainz is on his way to a smooth and assured victory, entering the final lap of the World Rally Championship without any car troubles. He was this close to clinching the title, simply needing to finish fourth to do so, when he was actually third throughout the rally, cementing his victory. Everything was going as perfectly as possible, when suddenly, 300 meters before the finish line, his engine blew up and the title landed in the lap of his rival, Mäkinen. Thinking about this painfully close defeat really opens our eyes to the reality of F1 and motorsports. That's a wrap for this video. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.